Jim Irsay's major commitment to Indianapolis started back in 1984. 1 month after Indianapolis welcomed the Colts to town from Baltimore, Jim Irsay was named general manager and vice president of his father's team. He took over day-to-day operations in 1996. Then in 1997, Jim Irsay became the youngest NFL owner at just 37. Jim Irsay always said what was on his mind. He was clearly the most outspoken owner in the NFL. He led the way on many major decisions about the game he loved. Jim Irsay wasn't afraid to invest in his team to win. The Peyton Manning era lasted 13 seasons. It was the glory days under Jim Irsay's leadership. Jim's most cherished moment came in 2007. That's when his team won the Super Bowl on a rainy night in Florida. Jim Irsay was also willing to take chances, like in 2022 when he fired Frank Reich and hired Jeff Saturday to lead the Colts, despite the fact that Jeff Saturday had never coached in the NFL. Under his leadership, the Colts racked up more than 260 wins, 10 divisional titles, and made the playoffs 18 times. Jim Irsay loved his Colts, but he also loved giving to our community. Jim Irsay would often make massive private donations to people in need. He had a heart of gold and often showed up at training camp, handing out $100 bills to Colts fans. He gave millions of dollars to local organizations like Riley Hospital, Wheeler Mission, and the YMCA, just to name a few.
It's really going to be special. I mean, something like this never has been done.
Jim Irsay loved rock and roll. He formed the Jim Irsay Band. He'd perform with some of the biggest names in the business. And he also loved history. He spent millions of dollars to buy historic items. The Irsay collection is one of the biggest private collections in the world. Jim Irsay wanted to share that collection with fans. It would be displayed during free concerts around the country over the last few years. But Jim Irsay openly admitted that he had demons to fight in his life. In March of 2014, he was arrested for a DUI and drug possession. He spent an extended time in rehab, but came back stronger. In 2020, Irsay and his family started the Kicking the Stigma Foundation, raising awareness of mental health issues and shame associated to it. The foundation is very successful and impacting millions. Jim Irsay is survived by his 3 daughters and 10 grandchildren that he dearly loved. His legacy and impact on our world will not be forgotten. Jim Irsay was 65.
Coach Tony Dungy joins me. Coach, where were you and how did you learn of the news of Jim Irsay's passing?
Rich, I was at our Wednesday night Bible study at my home in Tampa and just could not believe it. Got several messages on the phone and it was just hard to fathom.
What was your initial reaction and what thoughts come to mind?
It was just so hurting. I just felt really bad. Hadn't had any indication that anything was even wrong, so it catches you totally in shock. But as I've had time to reflect, I thought about the very first conversation I had with Jim when he called me in 2001, and we talked, and he said, "Hey, I want you to be my coach because we want to do something special here in Indianapolis. Yes, we want to win, but we want to have the right type of young men. We want to be role models. We want to connect with the city. We want to make this something special for the city of Indianapolis." And then I remember when we finally won that Super Bowl, coming back into the stadium, into the RCA Dome, and we're standing there, and I looked over at him and I said, "Jim, I think we did it. We did exactly what you talked about. We won it, but with the right type of young man and just as a gift to the city." And it was so special to realize that that's what he wanted. And then I remember Lucas Oil Stadium. I actually was thinking of retiring the year before, and he said, "No, this stadium is so special. We're going to be in downtown Indianapolis. The Colts are going to be here forever, and I need you to be in this building the first year," because that whole thing was Jim. He wanted the team to be there. He didn't want to move. Just getting the stadium for the city and all the things now that we see, NCAA tournaments and Big Ten championships and all the things that are happening for Indianapolis, that was Jim's dream and his vision.
You just talked about what I was going to ask you, and that is, I remember you telling the story when you were hired of Jim Irsay calling you when you had essentially just been let go by Tampa Bay and really didn't know the future trajectory of your football career as a coach. How did Jim Irsay change your career?
He talked about growing up being a Steeler fan, and he saw the chemistry that the Steelers had with their fans and with the city, and the fact that it was the Rooney family in Pittsburgh forever. And he said, we don't have that in Indianapolis. We just moved here, and we're trying to build that. That's what we want. And I want this not to be a football team, but I want this to be the city's team. And when I heard that told me that that's where I want to be. This is about more than winning. This is about developing young men, about just doing things the right way. And Jim was that way all the time. I mean, he did things, reached out to people that no one will ever even hear about. But just, it's hard to even put into words just how special, how compassionate, how caring he was.
What was your relationship with Jim, and how did that grow and develop over the years, not just as a boss and the owner of the team, but as a friend and the family leader of the Colts?
He was really a great boss, and he was so compassionate. He cared about his people. And I'll never forget, again, going to the Super Bowl, and he took every member of our staff. It didn't matter what job you had in the facility, you and your spouse were going to the Super Bowl. And no one does that, but that was Jim Irsay's heart. And that's the way he was. He cared about the players, he cared about the staff, he cared about the city, and he just wanted the best for everyone. And I guess one of my favorite and most lasting memories, my dad was getting up in years, and Jim said, I see him. I know he comes to all the home games, but I see him going to the away games too. And I said, yeah, when he can and when he could make it, he goes. He said, just tell him to come here. We'll have a seat for him on the plane. And he took my dad to every single away game the last 2 years of his life. And that's just the way he was.
As you think about the years you had here in Indianapolis that led to a Hall of Fame career, and now you've worked for NBC for several years, and I'm sure you get all around the league and come back to Indianapolis for some games. When was the last time you saw Jim?
I saw Jim at the Hall of Fame last year, and then I saw him during the season. And it kind of brings a tear to your eyes now because you don't think, well, that's going to be the last time that I ever saw him. We talked, and we're talking about the team and the future and going forward. And I talked to him on the phone several times, but you just don't think that that's going to be the last time. And man, it's hard, Rich. It's really hard.
And Jim, somewhat publicly had his demons. He had his health concerns. He had his addiction problems. And yet he was very upfront about that in some ways and really tried to help others who were in the same situation. Speak to his public persona in that area.
Yeah, I know we can all be judgmental and we can look at other people and say, oh, this shouldn't have happened, or look at that. But Jim understood some of the problems that he had. He was very, very much really determined not to let that happen to people who were close to him and not to let that happen to his players, his staff. And he went out of his way to help people. And just what the Colts are doing now with their mental health awareness and different things like that, that all stems from him. And I have a lot of respect for him as a person, overcoming some of those things, but more than that, just really hoping that he could help other people avoid some of the things that he went through.
And I guess Jim Irsay really allowed you to be on that platform to become the first Black coach to win a Super Bowl. And I got to believe one of your lasting memories will be hoisting that Lombardi trophy with Jim there on a rainy night in Miami.
No doubt about it. he was so special to me, and he just showed so much confidence in me. And we'd have our discussions and we'd have our talks, but hey, you're in charge of the football side of it, Tony. I want you to do what you think is best. And I can't tell you what that means when your boss has that kind of confidence in you. And then when we finally achieved that and got there, and Commissioner Goodell handed Jim that trophy, I mean, I wanted to just burst out and say thank you. We did it for him, and that was one of the special moments of my life, no question.
Tony, that's a good way to end our conversation. Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome, Rich, and it's a tough one, but special man, and I'm just glad that I got a chance to know him and be around him.
Former players also remembering Jim Irsay tonight. Peyton Manning posting tonight on social media saying he's heartbroken to hear about Jim Irsay's passing, calling the Colts owner incredibly generous and passionate. T.Y. Hilton thanked Jim Irsay, saying, "I will forever hold our talks close to my heart." And Reggie Wayne posting, "This hurts my soul." Well, we caught up with sports fans tonight gathered to watch the Pacers game, but they also wanted to talk with us about the Colts owner. Logan, so many memories about Jim Irsay all across our city.
Yes, that's right, Scott. I spoke with so many Colts fans who were so eager to talk to me about Irsay's legacy. While I was at the watch party, so many people, they were there to watch the Pacers, but they were distracted a little bit because of the Irsay news. Now, I spoke with many of them about what they say his legacy is, not only for the city, but also for the state. Check out what they had to say.
It's really sad that Jim Irsay passed away. What he's done for the city, what he's done for Indianapolis, I will always appreciate, and I think it's important to just honor what he's done for not only the team but just for the city, and the impact on a cultural basis on Indianapolis that he's had with us.
I was surprised, like I didn't expect that. We're thinking about the Pacer game, and then we hear someone that's really important to Indianapolis, passed away. So that's really sad.
After Jim's passing, we need to look forward to the daughters taking over the team. I think all three daughters very well trained and they know what they're doing here. I really trust them as well.
Yeah, well, we're still waiting for confirmation about that, who's going to actually take over the team. But what we do know is Irsay is survived by his three daughters, Carly, Casey, and Kaylin, who are all vice chairs of the team.
So many of our colleagues here in the media have covered Jim Irsay for a long time. Talk show host Jake Query joins me in studio tonight. So what impact did Jim Irsay have on the city of Indianapolis?
Boy, in so many ways, Scott. I think everything from, if you look at schools or the downtown YMCA, I think areas that, Indianapolis at the time that the Colts came here was a town that was just emerging from the amateur sports capital into becoming a big league city. And obviously it was his father who was the owner at that time. But I think what Jim Irsay did beyond the philanthropy, which was widespread and oftentimes private, as you guys mentioned, citywide, I think he also brought a legitimacy ultimately to the city and to the franchise by bringing Eric Dickerson here, a transcendent star, and really starting to put Indianapolis as an NFL town, first and foremost, beyond just one that had inherited a team via a move.
Let's talk about the glory days of the Colts under Jim Irsay. I mean, in 6 years, they play in 2 Super Bowls, they win 1, and then Indianapolis hosts a Super Bowl, all in 6 years. What was that like covering him during those glory years?
It was something, because Indianapolis was the epicenter of the sports world literally every fall, because you're talking about teams that were getting out to 10-0, 12-0, 14. They were the model of stability within the National Football League. And I think Jim Irsay gets a lot of credit for a guy who had been a general manager when his father owned the team, and then having the ability, once he was the owner, to step back and let Bill Polian run that franchise and bring in Peyton Manning and let Tony Dungy, who you guys heard from, letting those three guys guide the franchise and offering his financial support and his input. But at the same time, I think having a little bit of the humility at that time period of stepping back and knowing that that was the best direction for the Colts. And it was the best period without question for the franchise.
So clear that Jim Irsay loved the Colts,
yes,
loved his family, loved this community. And boy, he loved music, didn't he? I mean, he collected all these incredible pieces of these instruments that were worth a lot of money. And then he loved playing music. I mean, do you have any memories of those?
Yeah, I think his eccentricities with the music. I mean, the one thing I remember is when they won the Super Bowl and he dressed up almost like a Willy Wonka character.
I remember that. It was a great memory.
Handing out like a scavenger hunt for Super Bowl rings for people.
Yep.
And then when he started doing the collection and realized, Scott, that people had an interest in that, I think he truly wanted that to be as much a part of his legacy as the football franchise itself. And he wanted to share that. I think the thing that that collection did and the music did is it showed his generosity, because it was a passion of his, but it was a passion because he wanted to share it with the community. And I think Jim Irsay truly felt like the shoe, as he calls it, the franchise, was as much this city's as it was his. And that's what made him a good owner.
And one of his last posts on X was rooting for the Pacers.
Correct.
That was something that happened earlier today.
And I think it was important for him to be somebody who was a champion for different things throughout the city. Everything. And I will say this, as somebody who shares this myself, I had a great respect for his love for animals, his love for the underserved. And I think that he took it upon himself to at times be a voice for the voiceless. And I always thought that was commendable.
Yeah, Jake Query giving us some great insight tonight into the life of Jim Irsay. Jake, thanks so much for being here. A memorial tonight on Monument Circle. Wanted to show you the horseshoe on the side of the AES building downtown, honoring Jim Irsay. We'll take a break and be right back. Welcome back. We are remembering Jim Irsay tonight. From former players to local and state leaders, people from all walks of life are remembering the Colts owner tonight. Jim Irsay died today at the age of 65. Tonight we went to Carmel to talk about his legacy with retired linebacker Gary Brackett.
The Frank Sinatra song, I Did It My Way, comes to mind just in terms of, his guitar and him singing. But I could just remember him during the early years when he was still working out. I mean, running like 110 sprints on the field as we're practicing outdoor, right? So he was just, I think, how he did anything is how he did everything. And I think he always wanted the best and demanded the best from him, his organization. And it's definitely going to leave a big, gaping hole just with his loss.
And Indiana Governor Mike Braun tonight sharing his condolences on social media. Our governor posting, the Irsay family brought football to the state of Indiana, and his philanthropic efforts will have a lasting impact for years to come. Indianapolis Mayor Joe Hogsett commended Irsay's commitment tonight to mental health resources, saying Jim represented the power sports can have on a city.
With a push of a button, his office is filled with rock and roll. Jim Irsay is a very passionate man.
The most valuable guitar in the world, Bob Dylan's guitar from the Newport Folk Festival 50 years ago when he plugged in. So, seriously? Yeah, that was the most expensive to date of any soul guitar.
He loves music history, but he's even more passionate about the Colts and his family.
I've known you for over 20 years. You seem healthiest and happiest I've seen you in a long time. Congratulations. Do you feel like you're in a great place right now?
The family's growing. Obviously, the three daughters now, they're, the youngest one's getting married in June. So again, there'll be, hopefully, God willing, some grandkids coming from that union. And we're right up there at 5 grandkids, trending to 6, I think, in April, God willing.
He's all about those grandkids. 5 years ago, we joined him as he played and sang a song that he wrote for those kids.
Little girl, she turns away, hoping that tomorrow is better than today.
Little Charlotte is now 6, and the little ones are paying attention to Grandpa.
A lot of times they'll be with me during games, and to say the least, I am not calm, and my language, unfortunately, isn't always as proper as it should
Grandpa,
be.
what'd you just say?
Sometimes, my grandson, little AJ, will all of a sudden say, I'll say something and he'll say, quietly, Grandpa, oh, you know, just a word. So, I mean, they're so interesting because they know Grandpa loves them so much, and when Grandpa's mad during a game or something, they understand it has nothing to do with them. It's such a joy. I think everyone out there that has grandchildren know what a blessing it is.
Irsay also enjoys working with his daughters. They are now third-generation NFL owners. Carly Irsay Gordon is involved with the day-to-day operations. Casey Foyt works in marketing and community relations. And Kaylin Irsay works in corporate sales and community outreach. Her behind-the-scenes photography has become a big hit on Colts.com.
To see the girls involved, you know, in the family business and that sort of thing.
How's that going? Is that tough as a dad to work with your daughter?
It's great. It really is. There's plenty of work to be done, and they've really got in there and you know, learned like I did at some of the grassroots levels.
Jimmy joined the team as the general manager when he was just 24. He became the NFL's youngest owner at 37.
One thing that, you know, I pass on to my girls and the future generations in this thing is, you know, this is professional football and we're in it to win. You know, this is something that we take a lot of pride in with our fans.
Irsay reached that pinnacle of success in 2007 on that rainy night in Miami, and he knows that this town is overdue for another title.
You know, you live and die with your fans in ownership as well, because you're just so invested in trying to deliver greatness, you know, for the football team that it's very emotional. It's tough and that sort of thing. And as you know, it's hard to win in this league.
The pursuit of that trophy. At 56 years old, Jim Irsay is not done yet. He's still enjoying the ride.
It's hard to believe how much time has passed. I remember coming here again with the Mayflower trucks in '84, and now to be a grandfather and to see my kids involved. It's a really good place to be.